And when the Chumash picks up on that journey, having jumped over the 14 years which belonged to Yankov, where does it begin? He's having a dream. When? In the night. What's the night always a symbol of? Golus. Where is he? In tents? No, he's in Esau's territory. He's out in the fields now. And for the next 22 years, he will be out in the fields. He'll be a shepherd in the fields. So he has to go out, not as a hunter and murderer, he has to go out as a peaceful, constructive role of a shepherd, but he's out in the fields. He's out in the open, no longer in the protected tents. He's no longer in Eretz Yisrael. He's out in Golus Mamish. And where will he fight the Sar Esau? In the dark of the night, in the fields. So now his whole life is bound up with walking in the territory of Esau and becoming that person that Esau could and should have been. And to add to this, the Ramban says quite clearly that the 20 years he spent with Lavan was just as when Avram and Sarah went down to Mitzrayim, and the Ramban says, Masa of a similar bonim. What happened to the Mitzrayim was a foreshadowing of the Egyptian exile. So he says quite categorically what happened to Yankov with Lavan, the trickster, the falsehood, out of Eretz Yisrael, was a foreshadowing of Golus Edom. He worked in those 20 years through the 2,000 years we're working through now. If we look at the dream itself before he sets out, it's also very fascinating because we see Malachim going up and down ladders and then Hashem Nitzavalov. So what does that mean to him? Because in Golus, when we're lost among the nations, there's a Hester. It's very hard to see Hashem. It's not like being in Eretz Yisrael. And the nations are empowered by Sorim, by angels that are go-betweens. Hashem has no direct, as it were, contact with the nations. He does it through the angels. So we're falling into that sort of trap of losing sight of Hashem. And when he lay there, he saw these angels and angels, but when he lifted his eyes to the very top, Hashem Nitzavalov. So the job is to go out into those places where Hashem seems hidden and keep looking and looking and finding until there's a Gilui Elikis everywhere. And that's V'hinei Hashem Nitzavalov. And behold, if you really look and you really search, you'll find Hashem everywhere in your life. It's also not coincidental, actually, that to come back to the point of the Yismach Moshe, that the Ikka role and history of Klal Yisrael is in Golus, that not only did Avraham come from Chutz, not only did all the four mothers come from Chutz, but the Shiftei Kol, Bar Binyamin, are all born at Lavan's house. They're not born in Eretz Yisrael. They're not born with Avram or Yitzhak. They're born in Lavan's house. Klal Yisrael, as the Shvatim, Yosef, they're born and they grow up in Golus. They're born and grow up in the territory of Rivka, having to resist and fight against the influences around them, because they would have to put that koyach into their children, because that's our main spiritual potential, our main spiritual job. When he came to fight with the Sar Esau, as I say, he was fighting with a spiritual being. In other words, he'd sort of ascended above the physical level. He'd come to a level which was not only very high, but relates to a very important principle. We talk about the fact that the soul, when it comes into this world, comes down into our body. But the Zohar and other sources say only a chelik of the soul comes down. There's a lower part of the soul comes into the body, but the real shorish, the higher part of the soul, stays out of it and is connected back upwards into heaven. And that's where the greatest spiritual potential lies, and it has to obviously be drawn down into actuality in this world.
Keine Shumishin is not to be toheli.
Yes.
It's always tohel.
It's always tohel. That's right. It's never effective in this world. And that's where the real light of Esav lay. So when he fought the Malach, I think he was entering the sphere where the greatest light and potential that Esav could have used was sitting unused, untouched and unused. And what he wanted to do was take it away and make it his own. And it's very interesting that the Orach Chaim says the name Yisrael comes and goes in Chumash. It's not like Avram becomes Avraham and it stays. One posuk is Yankov, one posuk is Yisrael. And he says it's like an Ibn Neshama. He got a new level of Neshama, just like the Neshama comes and goes on Shabbos. So there were spiritual highs when it came to him, and other times it didn't. There's only lots of Lovoi, here we go by Shlishi time again, that he'll be permanently Yisrael, when with Techiyas Amesim he'll be permanently Yisrael and not Yankov. And why was it in Ibn Neshama? Because that was that Chelek of Neshama which Esav could have used and he grabbed it away from him. And that's what the Sar Esav was fighting to keep, because he was the guardian angel of that level of soul. And how does that come to the other part of our title, the lights of Hanukkah? It says that he went back for Pachim Katanu. He brought back one Pach. And that, says the Shachal Torah, who was a contemporary and sometime Talmud of the Rizal, was the Pach with which they lit tonight in the Beis Hamikdash. It had stayed 1,500 years in the family. It had been sealed by Aaron the Kohen Gadol, to be preserved in the Mishkan, the Beis Hamikdash, as a memory of that night, as a relic and an heirloom from the Ovis. And when they saw that had survived, and only that, they realised that this oil was the oil to use to light the menorah, and it's through that that the light of Hanukkah came. So the light of Hanukkah is the light of Esav. Because what is the light of Hanukkah? That's his soul. That's the light of his soul that he never used. As the Sfarim say that the Or of Hanukkah, when you look in the lights tonight and every night, and that's why we're encouraging the Sfarim to stare at them for half an hour, not just sort of wander off and eat our donuts and Smarties, it's the light of the ultimate redemption. It's the light of Mashiach. It's the Or Agonas that was created and given out in the early part of Maaseh Bereshis, and then Hashem hid it because the Rishonim would misuse it, and Tzaddikim only are worthy to use it. So when we light the lights tonight, the lights of Hanukkah, it's that light, the light of the Bai Shlishi, the light of Yemei Mashiach, which Yankov had to grab away from Esav, that potentially is brought back to Klal Yisrael, that we can bring a Tikkun Shalom to the world, that the robes of Odom Rishon can produce a full sense of Gan Eden, and we can bring things back to the level where it would have been had Odom not sinned. That shines out in the lights tonight. And because everything was about surface with Esav, believe in Olam Mesheka, don't see anything deeper, so we have to purify the eyes. So we stare at the lights of Hanukkah, asking Hashem to let that light come in our eyes, so that we are able to see Hashem everywhere. We're not fooled by appearances. We don't see Odom as there. We're not fooled by politics, and we're not fooled by fashions, but we actually see the truth in everything that lies in the world. So we're Zoicha together to see the ultimate revelation of the light of Hanukkah, the ultimate revelation of the potential of Esav, when all of us, B'nai Yisrael, will see the coming of Mashiach, but may remain, and let us say, Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.